Welcome to the Franchise Freedom Podcast. I'm your host, Giuseppe Grammatico, your franchise guide. And today we are switching things up a little bit on this show. I am going to be solo today, so host and guest. And I am doing this podcast just due to some questions I've been getting. A lot of people just wanting to have more information about franchising, making that leap, that career transition, career pivot from their corporate job. And just wanted to do kind of an all-inclusive show today, talking a little bit about the process, the book I wrote, the podcast. So hopefully get to answer a lot of your questions. So first off, thanks for joining us today. I believe we are episode 62. Show is doing great, and love to get your feedback. So any questions you have, please feel free. I respond and read every single comment, email. Just feel free. And if you do have any questions, you can always jump on the calendar, thefranchiseguide.com. Jump on the calendar and let's grab 20 minutes to chat and brainstorm some ideas. So always love to chat and meet new people. So a little bit of who I am. I get that question a lot. So been in the franchising world for just over 15 years now. Started my search back, or I actually purchased my first two franchises in 2007, and actually worked with a franchise coach and consultant back in 2005 as well as 2006, where I started to get really interested in that area and became a coach and consultant years and years ago. So love what I do, get to change lives, help people, and help them through the entire process. I love what I do because I was you. If you're listening in, you're probably a corporate executive and don't know what to do. You feel like you're stuck at your job. You have no future. You go online, tons of information on entrepreneurship and don't know where to start. Maybe you have a business plan that's on a Word document on your laptop that's just been sitting there for the last decade, or you've been looking at franchises and with well over 4,000 companies out there, just overwhelmed, not knowing exactly where to start. So I can help you. I've gone through that process. I've made every mistake, so you don't have to, and have worked with a coach who helped me along the way, and I hope to do the same. So kind of a little bit more who I am. As I mentioned, worked on Wall Street for many, many years. Prior to that, worked in the family business. My family owned the restaurant. Loved it. Just the hours were really rough, as nights, weekends, holidays, and things like that. So I too did not know the direction to move in. Took a look at different jobs, couldn't figure out exactly what to do. Different companies, positions, management. Maybe it was the role. Started working with a business coach, and we figured out that I do love systems in place, and I did have that entrepreneurial spirit, that drive to really own something. And after exploring different types of businesses, I wasn't the type to really figure things out from scratch, right? Start the brand from scratch, the service, the product. The book, What Color is Your Parachute, came up. And I remember my coach specifically, I still remember that conversation. She said to me, the color of your parachute is working with systems that are already in place and running with them. So to be clear, everyone's parachute obviously is different. One business is not better than the other, franchise or not. But she just said, you love running with that business. That was a good fit for me. Hooked up with a franchise coach, and many, many years ago, as I mentioned, 05, 06, and we explored various franchises. And the key differentiator, that basically, instead of looking at brands that I was driving past, on my way to work, was to really figure out what I truly wanted and giving myself permission to say, this is the life that I want. And these are the things I want in a business, and we'll talk more about that. So definitely been in your shoes, and we can definitely help you out in that career transition. I know it's not easy, and I'll recommend it again at the end of the call. After listening to this, you owe it to yourself. Book a 20-minute call with me. We'll brainstorm ideas In some cases, franchising isn't a good fit. In some cases, business ownership may not be a good fit. But I can help you save hundreds, if not thousands of hours of research in setting up that first call with me. So I encourage you to do that. It's a free consultation, free call, and we'll talk again more at later on. But our process, no contracts, and our services are free as we're paid by the franchise company. So more to come. So let's talk next about so kind of talking, kind of hinted a little bit, but the franchise freedom process. So there's really 4 steps and to really simplify things. So number 1 is with anyone I work with, we do that intro call. It's a 20-minute, we call it a right fit intro call, a brainstorming session where I answer all your burning questions about franchise ownership, bust a lot of myths about franchising, and educate as much as possible. But in that call, we figure out, number 1, if we are a good fit to work together. Maybe it's a personality thing. We also kind of figure out if business ownership as well as franchise ownership, if that's a good fit. So we accomplish quite a bit on that first 20-minute phone call. And then from that 20-minute phone call, I typically will mutually agree if we're working together, set up our second call. And prior to that, send you over a confidential questionnaire for you to fill out and give me a little bit more information about yourself, maybe things you've looked at in the past, get your financials together and in order. And some of the questions require a little bit of thought, especially if you've never done this before. And I always encourage you to have everyone on that reviewing that questionnaire and on the second call to provide their inputs, especially with a family. Everyone's going to be involved in that decision, right? Because as a business owner, obviously, there's always a ramp up time, hours, money, and things like that are involved. So step 2 is, once we get that questionnaire back, is our consultation call. They're about 60 minutes, sometimes 60 to 90 minutes, depending on questions, but we always book at least a 60-minute call. And that's a deep dive. It's a deep dive into the world of franchising. It's a deep dive into why you're exploring franchising, what you're looking to accomplish. Can franchising as a vehicle get you there? Answering questions, but specifically starting out with a blank slate, or a blank canvas, right? Like, we're painting the future together, and that canvas is blank, and we explore, okay, what does that business look like? What hours is the business open? Is it Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Is it 24/7? Who are your employees and what do they look like? Are they, they minimum wage? Is it a little bit more high turnover? Is it a business where you're just managing a few managers that are managing the business, or if just a few key employees to run that entire business? So we take a look at that. We take a look at territory, where you want to be, as far as the area that you're going to be covering. Is that close to home? Do you have multiple homes? Do you travel a lot? So we take a look at all the business characteristics. Are you going to be an owner operator in the business full time? Are you going to be semi-absentee and maybe work the business 20 minutes or 20 hours, 20 minutes would be nice, but 20 hours or less in the business. So we take a deep dive, and I always tell everyone, this is what you want. There's no, as I jokingly say, it depends on the business. This is the business you want, right? We want a sustainable business, a business that's a good fit for you, a business that's a good fit for a friend of yours that's successful may not be a good fit for you. So this is specifically tailored specifically for you, your situation, your goals, what you want to get out of life. So that's that consultation. Step 3 in the process. So this is of the 4 steps. Step 3 is in between that consultation and our third call, which is the franchisor review call. We will create a model for you. So that model is essentially, what does that business look like without the product or service, but the business, exactly the characteristics as we discussed, the motivators and things like that. So you have kind of a guide, a blueprint for figuring out what your next business is going to be. So really exciting stuff that you can use for the rest of your life and the rest of that journey in figuring out businesses and using that model that we created for you as a guide. And that third call is looking at 2 or 3 companies that match that model. Now, I do a lot of the work as far as figuring out if territory is available, speaking with franchise companies to make sure that they feel you match the ideal candidate that they're looking for. And that just may be number of hours, certain skill sets, certain franchise. They realize their ideal candidate has really good managerial skills, as there may be a lot of employees that you have to manage in that business. So we narrow that universe to 2 or 3 companies. We take a look at reasons why they may be a good fit for you. And then step 4 is I make the send over your information, make the introductions, and you continue the due diligence process with the franchise companies. Now, it's going to take 2 or 3 phone calls to really get a good grasp as to what the company does, and more specifically, the secret sauce. What is your ideal role? So, the product or service may be in home residential painting, or mosquito spraying, or even we'll call it small business coaching. The list goes on. There's literally a franchise in every industry, but we want to make sure specifically not just a product or service, not just a widget, but specifically what your role will be in the business day to day. And that's how we're going to figure out. You're not going to learn that on the website. You're going to learn that through specific questions with the franchise companies, and watching their videos and things like that. So that is the 4-step process, and the process continues. Step 4 is kind of a continuing process where we assist. So typically we talk at least once or twice a week to discuss how, get some feedback. What are your thoughts on the franchise? We want to get any feedback, good and bad, right? Positive or negative feedback is great. We want to narrow down those 2 or 3 franchise companies down to one that you will possibly move forward with. But we coach you through the process as far as the due diligence. We also provide a franchise investigations procedure that kind of walks you through the process. But without getting specifically there, we talk to you about questions you should be asking the franchisors, as well as a big, the meat of the due diligence process is asking questions directly to franchisees. The $1 million question: knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again? So those are some questions. Specifically, what did you make your first year? Getting into the financials. These are things that you're going to speak with the franchisor as well as the franchisees about. So this is just off the cuff, guys. I've been getting a lot of questions. I know a lot of people have downloaded my book, but hadn't had a chance to actually read the book yet. So I decided to do a quick podcast. Last few people have listened to 10 of my previous shows, but haven't had a chance to listen to the book. So maybe this will be a way of getting that information, to them. Maybe it's a little bit more convenient through your commute. I know a lot of people listen to the show as they're working out or just taking their morning walk. So that's a 4-step process, and we work with you. Our services are free. Well, how is it free? What's the catch? Well, really no catch. We are compensated directly from the franchise companies should you decide to purchase and invest in a franchise. Similar to a real estate agent, the buyer doesn't pay the fee, the seller does, similar to an executive recruiter. So wanted to get out there. There's no contracts or fees for any of our services. So other things we assist with is, funding. Funding is a big one. We typically, in between step 1 and step 2 of the process, we put you in touch with our funding partner, and they'll look through all your financials and give you all your best options. We work with specific companies as they will give you all your available options, even though, and this is key, even though they don't actually provide or offer that service. So that's a big takeaway in funding. So these are your funding options, and we will maybe a home equity loan, or maybe a portfolio backed or security loan. They may not offer that, but they may say speak with your wealth advisor or speak with your mortgage company or bank in order to look at these. So maybe a combination of a rollover from a 401k, which they may provide, and a home equity loan, which they may not, but they're at least giving you all the options. So speaking of which, by the way, I forgot to mention, hopefully you like the new background. Just had this created. Really looks sharp. I like it. So let me know. Let me know your thoughts on that. So anyway, so that is the process. That is a little bit about me. We talk about helping corporate executives experience time and financial freedom. Guys, I did this. I went through this process, and we don't just help corporate executives. We get a lot of calls from brand new or I should say, first time business owners or people looking to open a business, but we also help everyone else. So I also get calls, I get questions from people saying, "Hey, well, I already own a franchise. Can you help me?" Absolutely. We help people diversify their investments, various vehicles to get you to where you want to be. So working with someone right now in Florida, owns a franchise looking to add to the portfolio. We absolutely help. We help people assist with their exit strategy. Maybe they're looking to sell their business and invest in a franchise. We can help you. If you have a franchise question, I tell everyone, contact me, 20-minute brainstorm session, and we'll talk. We'll answer your questions. I'll point you in the right direction. So if you are looking to convert your business into a franchise, well, that's not something necessarily in our wheelhouse. We could definitely talk a little bit about that, but I will put you in touch with the right person so you can continue that conversation. So here to help. Use me as a resource. If you're a big fan of the podcast and you would like an introduction to any of the 50 plus guests we've had over the past year and a half, send me a message. I'll be more than glad to make that introduction. Our guests love feedback. Our guests love to speak with people that have listened to the show. So offers on the table. It's always on the table. Send me a message right on the website, guys. GG, the franchise guide. And that's GUIDE. As you can see in the background here. So send me that message and I will help you out and make that introduction. So, okay, cool. So we covered a lot of stuff here. Let's just jump into the book a little bit. So a lot of people told me they have a copy, as I mentioned, but haven't read the book. So the franchise freedom, a new manifesto for your financial and time freedom. Love the title. Quick and easy read. I actually just read through it. Took exactly about 29-30 minutes. So I'm not going to read the book. We do not have an audio version. We do have a free download on the site. You can also purchase the Kindle version. I believe it's 99 cents as the date of this recording, or you can pick up a hard copy on Amazon. So if you'd like a hard copy, just go on Amazon. I believe it's on sale for $4.99, and it's a quick book. It's not going to cover everything, but it's going to cover the basics. So, there's a couple chapters here. So we talk about chapter 1, a chance to escape your unfulfilling corporate career. And I'm going right through the book here really quickly. So we talk about, the journey, career transition and career pivoting, but that it's not easy. I go through my story as we covered in the beginning of the show. But, we talk also about risk. And there is also risks, believe it or not, to having a job, right? Having a job with little or no control of your future, really kind of depending on your manager, or I know in my case, the 25 managers I believe I had above me. So not only that, but we blindly, as I jokingly say, because I come from the investment world, invest in a 401k in mutual funds, for example, that we don't even have control over. So it's really no control over anything, right? In the job, we could be downsized at any point in time, maybe given a small severance. And then what do we do? So I always I talk about building a safety net. An insurance policy of your job is owning a business, starting a business semi-absentee, so part-time while keeping your job. While that business starts to grow, while you kind of work it on the side, what we call semi-absentee, that business will eventually start to take off. And now you have the option saying, okay, now I've diversified. I have two income streams, right? I have the income from my job. I have the income from my semi-absentee franchise, my semi-absentee business. Now I have the option. Now I'm in control to figure out, do I want to keep my job? Do I want to roll into a full-time position with my business, or do I just want to keep adding to the portfolio? So now you have options. With a business now, and we talked about 401k. I have a retirement plan. I can invest in multiple things. I don't have to invest in the approved mutual funds from my employer. I invest in stocks, bonds, managed accounts, you name it. There's multiple options, and I can invest a hell of a lot more than the current 401k contributions, which I believe are 19,500. I believe the investment is, or the limits are 50,000 plus, depending on the. So don't quote me exactly on the dollar amount, but it's much greater, a lot more flexibility. So lots of great stuff, lots of teasers here, and I'd love to talk to you more about that. A lot of it's covered in the book. We're going to dive quickly through here in the interest of time. And if you want more info, read the book, call me. It'll save you a ton of time. What is a franchise? Very simply put, you are buying the license or the right to a proven business model. The franchise company has kind of figured out through trial and error the best way to do business. So you don't own a piece of franchise of the franchisor or the corporation. You're buying you're starting your own legal entity, and you are buying a proven business model, a proven business system that you can run with. Why franchising? It's a proven business model. There's no pros and cons to franchising. It's the value proposition of a franchise. A franchise is a proven business model. They figured it out. They figured out the best way of doing business, the best way to get the service into the, is it B2B, B2C? Is it both? So they figured all that for you. So in exchange for that franchise fee, they have kind of figured that for you. So the question I get is, well, that's really expensive. I can, that franchise fee, it may be 25, 50,000, whatever the fee is. And I always come back and say, 50,000 is not, it is a lot of money. Absolutely. But what is it costing you for the trial and error on your own if you are creating a startup? And maybe it's not 50,000, maybe it's a lot less, but maybe it took 10 years to get there. So you lost 10 years of earnings potential, right? Because it sat on that Word document on your laptop. So consider the time value of money. I talk a lot about that, with my candidates on the podcast and on the webinar that we have. Think about that as well. So 10 years sitting there versus 50,000. Maybe the 50,000 isn't that big of an investment when you consider that startup and figuring things out, and maybe doing things the wrong way, or having to redo legal documents, or redo the product because maybe just the customers weren't liking the product. You can spend well over $50,000 there. So not saying all franchise fees are 50,000, but you kind of get the point there. And then, the next chapter, where to begin your franchise search. This is a big part of the book. People dive into researching specific franchises, and I challenge you to stop. Don't look at specific franchises. Figure out, is franchising the right fit for you? So the question I ask you is, do you want the business built for you, or do you want to build the business from scratch? Building from scratch is creating, as I mentioned, the product or service, the logo from scratch. You create it. You create all the systems from scratch, exactly the way you want them run. Or do you want the business built for you? Again, not a pro and a con, but what specifically works best for you. And that's different for every single person we speak with. And a really cool thing, sometimes, and just to help with the thought process, just because you pick a franchise to start, doesn't mean your next business has to be a franchise. It could be a startup, and vice versa. First business may be a startup, and then a franchise. So that's a really cool thing. We have franchise owners that I've helped with over the years that have started a franchise and then started their own startup that maybe utilize some of the clientele. Maybe it's homeowners in a specific area that they can utilize and upsell with a completely different service that the franchise does not offer. So you have lots of options. And, in going back into franchising, just because you start a franchise in home services, and we'll use the example of mosquito spraying, your next business doesn't have to be a mosquito spraying franchise or anything to do with residential. Maybe it's a children's martial arts studio. Maybe it's a coaching business. So, just because you purchase one franchise, the next one has to have no relation to that initial franchise. So figure that out. Figure out your goals, your 1, 3, 5, and 10-year vision. Include your family if you have a family, as I did with my family. In my case, it was just my wife. My son was born later in 2007, so couldn't have the discussion with him as we started February of that year. But these decisions affect the family. Both it's a large investment, one of the largest investments next to owning a home, and time. There wasn't really vacation or time spent away, at least the first 6 to 12 months of owning that business. Let's see. Selecting franchise companies to contact. Again, if you're doing the process on your own, figuring out what you want, and then going to the franchise companies and contacting them. So, little plug for a franchise coach or consultant should you decide to use one, and hopefully we get the chance or the opportunity to work together. When we send over candidate information to a franchise company, you get a response within 24 to 48 business hours scheduling that first call. Maybe the first process is watching a video or reviewing a document before that call, but the response is really quick. We kind of have our pulse on our finger on the pulse of franchising, as we know not just what the product or service is, and you can find that on the website, but we know talking with the founders, CEOs, VPs, franchise development people, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the ideal candidate, who does well, who they're looking for, and things like that. So, once we have all that, we're able to narrow that universe of close to 4,000 franchise companies. And by the way, 4,000 franchise companies, I've heard stats is 200 or 300 new franchise companies a year. And I've heard numbers where there's, that same number of people, companies exiting the franchising world. So not every franchise is built the same. Just because you enjoy the product or service is not a great reason to invest in a franchise. It may initiate the due diligence process, taking a look at it. Also, doesn't mean they have a good process for supporting their franchisees, or they may have a good process for the first 10 franchisees, but once that number jumps to 100, are they able to support? Do they have the team in place to support the franchise owners? And we help you with those questions to ask the franchisor, as well as directly from the franchisees, the people that are getting the support on a daily basis. So kind of going back, why use a franchise consultant? I kind of I jump around as you notice, get excited, really passionate for what we do. As I mentioned, why go it alone? There is no fear contracts. We're able to assist you. I wouldn't, not every franchise consultant is built the same, right? Ask them, maybe do a little interview on that intro call. I've personally owned franchise and non-franchise businesses. I've worked the corporate ladder, made a great income working on Wall Street, and turned down a major promotion in order to start my own business. And funny enough, I have quite a few people that thought I was crazy in that decision contact me now in order to. They're still at that same company or in that industry 15 plus years later, and they're looking for the same advice now on how to escape, since they are not happy. They just feel miserable, and that's an area we help in, figuring out if employment is the right fit. And these are things that we assist with, and we hold you accountable, and that's where the coaching comes into play. But figuring out and asking yourself the questions, not just what your life looks like, but if you're offered, just say you're making 100,000 a year. If you're today, obviously we're fast forwarding, we've been working together, but today, if you were offered a job, maybe it's in the same industry, same company, but it's a pay raise, assuming you were making a lot less, but $100,000 job starting tomorrow, or the perfect franchise starting tomorrow, which would you choose? These are things to think about. Sometimes people can answer those questions right away. Sometimes it requires a little bit of thought. So ask yourself that question. What would be your answer at this point? Sometimes people get stuck, and I provide them the additional information. So again, the benefit of franchise consultant, the person that has been there, been there, done that, escaped the corporate rat race. Excuse me. I'll grab a sip of water here. See, we're going not non-edited here. We're going straight through. So, a person that's been there, because reading about it, listening to a podcast, learning about it in school is not the same thing as actually physically going through it. What were your feelings? How did the first year go in business? Those are some really, that's priceless experience that I can help you out with. And as I mentioned, um, if it's not something that we directly can help with, we know somebody, in the industry that can help you out. So we could definitely assist via our experiences, talk to you about, and we talk about brainstorming, right? This isn't just about, let me tell you why franchising, as I mentioned, not a fit for everyone, but the brainstorming is, hey, did you know, let's throw some ideas there. Number one, we can, figure out a way for you to keep your job and have a franchise, and then potentially have another income stream or roll into that business full time. So that's doable. Does every franchise offer it? No. A lot of franchise companies want you to be an owner operator full time, 40 hours a week or more for the first 6 to 12 months. So that's not something that a lot of people know. It's not just about having the money to fund the general manager, but really, making sure that franchise company has a training system for the general manager for running it semi-absentee. Getting to speak with other franchisees that are running it semi-absentee, whether they have another job or not. So another key thing most people don't realize, and I come from the investment world, did not realize this as well. So full disclosure, you can utilize, and there's certain caveats, and we can talk more about this, but as far as rolling over your 401k money. Now, typically it's not with your current employer. It needs to be with a previous employer, or if it is your current 401k, if you've had a previous employer's 401k kind of rolled in there. And our partners can talk more about that, but talking about various ways. I don't have a lot in savings, or what other sources do I have? And our last couple families that we helped out were actually utilized it's called a Rob's plan. They used a 401k money from a previous employer. Many other options as well. That's been popular. Home equity loans. With the rising price of real estate, a lot of people are using the portion of the equity in their home in order to fund the franchise. So lots of options. Franchises are in every industry, every investment level. So they're not millions of dollars, and not all McDonald's and, Subways and things like that. There's franchises in mosquito spraying, employment services, dumpsters and porta potties, you name it, business coaching. There is a franchise out there at all investment levels, from under 100,000 to over $1 million. So we can talk about that. What it looks like, and the various. I kind of break it down to four quadrants. You got the half the quadrants in retail and half in non-retail. So they're service based, either working from home or small office. So we cover quite a bit. The book, again, Franchise Freedom. I definitely encourage you to read it. But if you are short on time, we cover the process, who I am, the book, all kind of covered it here. We talk about building a team very briefly, having that franchise consultant. Would love to be on your team and helping you kind of orchestrate how to fund the business, what it looks like. But hiring that franchise person, the funding person, the accountant, the CPA, the financial advisor, building that team. And the key to my success is, which it took me years, is a team that all works together, is able to communicate. Whether you're setting up that legal entity, sometimes the attorney wants to speak with the accountant. Maybe the accountant recommends an S corp, and the attorney an LLC for legal liability. So they talk together and figure out what's the best approach. The financial advisor, maybe the money is coming from a portfolio loan, from a loan on your securities. They can talk about that, any tax implications and things like that with the accountant. So a team is great. And last but not least, and I'm going through this quick, and we spent a lot of time on this on our calls, is, you know, why franchising? Obviously, there's tons of benefits, and we talked about it. But why do I see this is kind of odd to end on this note, but why I've heard franchisees not do well or potentially go out of business, and these are the franchisees. And I would say the number one reason is not following the system. So, people, it drives me crazy, and I don't understand this at all. But people will buy a franchise and not follow the system. I'm going to do the marketing my own way, or I'm going to add products or services and things like that. And it's like, well, the whole point of investing in a franchise is for their system. So these I'm going to go through these briefly. A second one is funding. They are, stretch themselves too thin. Maybe they do the due diligence on their own. They have 100,000 to invest. They invest it all, and they forget a cash reserve of 6 to 12 months is what I, tell everyone, and the funding companies do as well, of having money aside. Who's paying your mortgage, student loans, food, utilities, rent, whatever the case may be, is having that money aside. So not just investing everything you have, but that's why I tell everyone, go to a funding professional to give you all the options, making sure you have a cash reserve, so you're able to get past the first, excuse me, 3 to 6 months, with living expenses and things like that. What's another one? And I would say the third, and we'll leave it. We'll kind of wrap it up here, is buying the wrong franchise. So whether they use a franchise consultant, hopefully not, or did it on their own, they purchased a franchise because it was a hot concept. It was listed on Entrepreneur Magazine, and not a dig at Entrepreneur Magazine or anything else, but they got wrapped up in what was hot, meaning what was doing really well. Was it a fad? Was it something that was growing really fast? But ultimately, it wasn't a good fit for that person. So one person doing really well with the fast food franchise, and the next person maybe not too well, same area, or we'll say same state, northern New Jersey, central New Jersey. But the issue wasn't a good fit, because when we go back to our, what do you call it? I'm forgetting the word here, but the activity of creating a blank slate and figuring out what your ideal business looks like. Maybe that ideal business is 1 or 2 employees in a business that works Monday to Friday, but then you get wrapped up into a business like we'll say food, not against food, but just a complete opposite of Monday to Friday, and that's food. And you'll say, okay, well, that's not so important. My time, I'll figure out. And then you figure out, okay, well, not only is that business not Monday to Friday, 5 days a week, it's a lot longer hours. And my 2 employees is now 50 employees. So once we look at the brand as opposed to what you're looking at, you start to deviate, right, of exactly what you were looking for, what's most important. So if you reverse engineer the process like we do and figure out what you want, figuring out the widget, the product or service at the very end, it helps you quite a bit. You're laser focused in your search, and you can look at 2 or 3 companies and really spend the time to do the due diligence. If you're looking solely on product or service with 4,000 companies, you can spend the rest of your life stuck in the due diligence phase. So anyway, this is close to 40 minutes here, kind of an all-inclusive. So instead of reading the book, we covered quite a bit here. I encourage you to pick that up. Go to GG the Franchise Guide, download a free copy of my book. Check out, we have 61 other really powerful episodes that you should definitely check out. Let me know if you'd like any introductions to those guests. We have about a 25 minute video that also it's a webinar that we host sometimes once a month to organizations and schools. Check that out as well. And you could book a call or send me an email directly from the site. So nothing to remember except for the website. Send me your comments. If you have a question, we may create a podcast from that, or I will respond. I have no one else responding to my messages but myself. So send me a message, and let's just book a call, book a 20-minute call. Let's brainstorm. Let's discuss franchising. Let me answer your questions and let me help you as best we can. So I always finish off with my last saying. What's your success story? Excuse me. Let's do that over again. What's your success story? And let's build that success story together. Let's build that future together.